The new lawmakers are here, and the lawmakers have approved sweeping tax bills to help out the American people. These payments are expected to be sent out automatically for the low income and middle income. Now, the risk and pressures of a coming debt showdown and Republicans are quickly mounting for President Biden, who is expected to announce a re-election bid as soon as this week. Yes, folks, the White House and top Democrats are insisting they won't engage with Kevin McCarthy's demand for spending cuts, everybody. But not only that, many economists are warning that Americans are going to face a recession. The stock market may be closely watching the chance of an official economic recession, but many Americans across the country are already feeling the squeeze. In a poll released by the Morning Consult last month, almost half respondents believed that the nation was already in a recession. The poll also found that about 41% of Americans surveyed had begun taking precautions and steps to beef up savings. But a closer look at the data revealed disparities by income. Adults in households with annual earnings above $100,000 were more likely than others to say they were beginning to prepare for an economic downturn or recession, with 50% saying they had to cut back and stockpile food. The poll comes as recent months have seen more Americans be optimistic and feeling pessimistic about the nation's forecast. At the same time, data shows that credit card debt is actually on the rise. A March study found that credit card debt increased $85 billion during the quarter 4 of 2022. That's the highest quarterly increase ever recorded. Recent months have also seen big layoffs in big tech industries like Google and Apple. And researchers have even shown more consumers making more than $100,000 annually say they're living paycheck to paycheck, which is something the president must fix. The Biden administration finally has a brand new plan to fight inflation and help the American people. Millions of Americans may get extra $225 stimulus checks under this new stimulus proposal. Millions of people could get millions of Americans could also get additional cash payments of $225 under a new proposal. That comes as red-hot inflation continues, and qualifying residents in Indiana may soon see the relief. Indiana's Republican governor is also proposing a plan to send $225 payments to people in the state amid the highest inflation since 1981 by tapping into the state's growing budget surplus. The governor said he will call for a special legislative session before the end of June, so lawmakers can consider and potentially act on a plan that will total $1 billion in budget surpluses. He said Indiana residents have real needs right now during this period of high inflation, from the gas pump to buying groceries, and everyone should benefit from the state's success. The $225 check comes after about 4.3 million of the state's taxpayers began receiving $125 payments last month under the same law. According to the governor's office, if it's approved, each Indiana resident who has filed 2021 taxes would be eligible to now receive a combined total of about $350 in payments. Married couples filing jointly would also receive about $700. The additional deposit will be made to the bank accounts of eligible residents in Indiana who have filed their tax returns. And that's the good news I want to hear from everybody. Now, skyrocketing gas prices is definitely a huge problem for the White House, and while the administration began the month by pivoting heavily toward its economic message, experts say the attempt has so far fallen flat, especially as the national average for a gallon of gas hits a record of $5. Along with inflation, that presents a major political challenge for Biden Democrats going into the midterms. According to a poll this month, 85% of voters say they think inflation is a very serious or somewhat serious problem. In the same poll, 40% of respondents said President Biden has a lot of responsibility for the inflation rate, and 31% said he has some. Energy Secretary has also told CBS News this week that Americans could brace for a rough summer, with the top energy agency predicting fuel prices may not come down to less than $4 a gallon until the fall or winter. Energy Secretary said that there will be some relief on the horizon, but during the summer driving season, it's going to be rough, no doubt about it, because we have such demand and supply mismatch on the global market for oil. The president and his administration have pointed steps they've taken in recent months to try to pump the brakes on rising gas prices. And also, Biden has ordered the release of millions of barrels of oil from the strategic petroleum reserve to boost supply, push for nations to boost production, lifted restrictions on the sale of fuel with higher ethanol content, and promoted renewable energy sources such as EV vehicles and solar power. But the reality is, even as the Biden administration officials acknowledge this, it's the president has little sway over day-to-day gas prices, which are often affected by global supply chains.
I assume that's not about the Golden State Warriors. Good morning, everyone. We come together at a time of so much activity here within the hour or so. My understanding is that the Senate will be taking up the vote on the PACT Act, which honors our pact, our promise to our veterans on the burn pits legislation that was being passed. We're very excited about that. This week generally has been about affordability. Affordability at the kitchen table, affordability at the pump, affordability for America's working families. So I'm very proud that as we gather here right now on the floor, we have legislation that will lower food and fuel costs act. The way we will do that is to lower food costs. Do you believe that Russia is one of the big suppliers of fertilizer in the world? The lower supply of fertilizer, the increased price and demand for it has increased food cost. So we are addressing that in the legislation. Competition is so important in the meat packing industry, and it just simply doesn't exist. So that will also lower meat and poultry cost on the shelf, and therefore at the kitchen table. And the lowering cost with cheaper, cleaner, unleaded 88. This is a very important issue to many of our members in rural America because much of it exists there, and the average reduction at the pump is about 40 cents. So we're very pleased with that legislation. The vote will come up soon. Again, I would tell you what it does, but you can read it here on the sign. Again, we want to break the grip of foreign supply on American kitchen tables. And that applies in fuel as well as fertilizer. And again, many of these meat packing companies are foreign owned. When Putin invaded Ukraine, almost immediately the price at the pump went up by about $2 in not immediate but near immediate range of his invasion. So this largely the price at the pump is about supply. Supply is down, cost is up. The war has contributed enormously to that. But there is also price gouging, and we had legislation that we talked about before that was passed in the Congress addressing price gouging as well as market manipulation. So there's some corporate greed involved in this price at the pump as well. And we are again taking steps to lower the cost at the pump so that America's working families are not being exploited in that way.